He was barely able to overcome his anxiety, so he got up and walked toward the palm trees, once again realizing the multiplicity of meanings in things. Now the desert had become a place of safety, while the oasis had turned into danger. The camel driver was sitting by the trunk of a palm tree, also watching the sunset, and when he saw the young man approaching from behind one of the dunes, he said as soon as he came near, "There is an army approaching. I saw it in a vision." The desert fills men's hearts with visions. But the young man told him about the two hawks he had watched soaring, and how he had suddenly penetrated the soul of the world. The camel driver didn't respond, even though he understood what the young man was saying, for he knew that anything on the surface of the earth could tell the story of everything. When a person opens a book to any page, or reads another person's palm, or watches birds in flight, or cards being shuffled, he can find some connection to what is about to happen. The truth is that these things reveal nothing by themselves, but people discover them when they observe things in a way that allows them to penetrate the soul of the world. And the desert is full of people who earn their living because they can easily access the soul of the world, and they are known by the title seers. Women and elders fear them, and warriors rarely consult them, because there is no point in going into battle if a warrior already knows when he will die. Warriors always prefer to face battle and confront the unknown. As for the future, it is written by God, glory be to him, and whatever he has decreed is for the good of mankind. That is why fighters live only in the present, because the present is full of surprises, and they must always be prepared for a multitude of things. Where is the enemy's sword positioned? Where is his horse? What strike must be delivered to avoid death? The camel driver was not a warrior, and he had previously consulted seers. Many of them had told him true things, while others had lied, until one day he asked one of them, the oldest and most dignified, why he was so eager to know the future. The camel driver replied, "So that I can do certain things, and also to avoid what I don't want to happen." The seer answered, "In that case it will no longer be your future. But maybe I want to know the future so I can prepare for what is destined to happen. If they are good things, they will come as a pleasant surprise. If they are bad, you will suffer greatly before they happen." Then the camel driver replied, "I want to know the future because I am a man, and people live according to their future." The seer remained silent for a moment. His specialty was the game of magical sticks that he would throw to the ground and interpret based on how they fell. But that day he did not use his sticks. Instead, he wrapped them in a piece of cloth, placed them in his pocket and said, "I make my living by reading the future for people. I know the art of the sticks and how to use them to penetrate the veils in which everything is written. I can read the past in them, uncover forgotten matters, and understand the signs of the present. When people consult me, I do not read the future. I speculate about it, because the future is in God's hands alone, and no one reveals his secret except him, and only under rare circumstances. So how then? I predict the future thanks to the signs of the present, for the secret lies in the present. If you pay attention to the present, you can make it better, and if you make the present better, then what follows will also be better. Forget the future and live each day of your life according to what the law of God dictates, trusting in his mercy toward his creation, for each day carries eternity within it." The camel driver wanted to know what were the rare circumstances in which God allows the future to be seen, so the seer replied, "When he himself reveals it. And he reveals it only rarely, for one reason only, that it has been written that such a future is to be changed." The camel driver thought that God had revealed the future to the boy because his will was for the boy to become his instrument, so he said to him, "Go and speak to the tribal chieftains and tell them about the approaching warriors. They will laugh at me. They are desert men, and desert men understand signs. Then surely they already know. That is not their concern. They believe that if they are meant to know something, and God's will is for them to know it, someone will come to tell them. It has happened many times before. And today you are the messenger." The boy thought of Fatima and decided to go meet the tribal chieftains. He said to the guards standing at the entrance of the large white tent set up in the middle of the oasis, "I carry a message from the desert, and I want to speak to the chiefs." The guard did not reply and disappeared inside the tent, staying there for a long while, then came out accompanied by a young Arab man wearing a white and gold robe, and the young man told him what he had seen. He asked him to wait a moment, then went back into the tent. Night fell, and there were Bedouins and merchants entering and leaving in large numbers, and gradually the tents began to extinguish their lights, and the oasis soon became quiet with the stillness of the desert. During all that time, the young man did not stop thinking about Fatima, and he had not fully understood the conversation that had taken place between them earlier that afternoon. Finally, after several hours of waiting, the guard allowed him to enter. He was astonished by what he saw, for he had never imagined that such a tent could exist in the heart of the desert. The ground was covered with the most beautiful carpets he had ever stepped on, and golden and bejeweled chandeliers hung from above, carrying lit candles. The tribal chiefs sat deep in the tent in a semicircle, leaning on their elbows and stretching their legs on cushions of finely embroidered silk. There were servants going back and forth with trays full of food in their hands, offering tea, while others were busy keeping the coals of the hookahs burning, and the air was filled with the scent of sweet tobacco. There were 8 chiefs, but he immediately recognized which one was the most prominent. He was an Arab, wearing a white and gold robe, sitting at the center of the circle, and beside him was the young man he had spoken to a short while ago. And one of the chiefs asked, as he looked at him, "Who is the foreigner speaking of a message?" "I am," replied the young man. Then he told them what he had seen, and another tribal chief said, "Why then does the desert reveal such things to a man who comes from afar, while we have been here for generations?" "Because my eyes have not yet grown accustomed to the desert, and so they can see things that eyes used to it can no longer perceive." And he thought to himself, "Because I also know what the soul of the world is." But he added nothing, for the Bedouins do not believe in such things. A third chief said, "The oasis is neutral ground. No one would ever attack an oasis." The young man replied, "I am only recounting what I saw. If you do not wish to believe it, then do nothing." A deep silence fell over the tent, followed by a tense exchange among the tribal chiefs. They were speaking Arabic in a dialect the young man could not understand, and when he made a move to leave, the guard told him to stay. He began to feel a kind of fear, and the omens told him something was not right, and he regretted having spoken of the matter with the camel driver. Suddenly, the old man sitting in the center smiled a barely noticeable smile, as if to restore calm. The old man had not taken part in the discussion, and had hardly spoken a word until that moment, but the young man had now grown familiar with the language of the world, and could feel a wave of peace pass through the tent from one end to the other, and his intuition told him he had done well to come. The discussion ended, and everyone fell silent to hear what the elder would say, as he turned toward the young man, his expression now cold and solemn. The elder said, 2,000 years ago, in a faraway land, a boy who believed in dreams was thrown into a well, then found and sold into slavery. He was bought by merchants from our lands and brought to Egypt. And we know that anyone who believes in dreams also knows how to interpret them, even if he cannot always fulfill them. That's what the boy thought as he remembered the old gypsy woman, and that man was able to save Egypt from famine, thanks to Pharaoh's dream of the fat and lean cows. His name was Joseph, and like you, he was a foreigner, a stranger in a strange land, and most likely he was your age. A long silence followed, and the expression in the sheikh's eyes remained cold. Then he continued, "We always follow tradition, and we know that Egypt was once saved from famine by Pharaoh's dream of 7 fat cows and 7 lean ones, and that its people became the wealthiest on earth. Tradition teaches us how men should cross the desert and how they should marry off their daughters. And tradition says that the oasis is sacred ground, because each of the warring camps has its own oases, and they are vulnerable to danger." And no one said a word as the old man continued speaking. But tradition also tells us to believe the messages of the desert, for everything we have learned, the desert has taught us. The sheikh gestured with his hand, and all the Arabs stood up. The meeting was over, the hookahs were extinguished, and the men stood at attention. As the boy prepared to leave, the sheikh resumed speaking. "Tomorrow, we will cancel the agreement that no one may carry weapons inside the oasis. We will await the enemy during the day, and when the sun begins to set, the men will take their weapons back in hand. And you will receive a piece of gold for every 12 enemies you kill. But weapons must only be drawn for combat, because they have moods like the desert. If we draw them without cause, they may refuse to fire when we need them. And if none of them is used tomorrow, then at least one of them will serve a purpose. Against you.